Imagine discovering that your partner, someone you've trusted for decades, has been secretly reconnecting with an old love. That's exactly what happened to me. One ordinary day, a message popped up on my wife's phone, and in a heartbeat, my world turned upside down. How could I have missed this? How do you even begin to confront a betrayal that cuts so deep? I'm here to share my journey, how I navigated the heartbreak, the confusion, and the surprising path of self-discovery that followed. If you've ever felt lost, stuck, or blindsided, stay with me. This story might just be the inspiration you need to find your own way forward. Something felt different that day, like a shadow lurking just out of sight. I'd never been one to snoop through Marissa's things. We'd built our marriage on trust, or so I thought. But suddenly, her phone screen lit up, drawing my attention with a single notification. A message. Just a few words, but they changed everything. Can't wait for our meeting, and a heart emoji. My stomach dropped. It was from Roberto, her first love. The name alone stung, stirring memories of stories she'd once told me, laughing as she brushed them off. 40 years together, and suddenly, it felt like I was standing on shattered glass. In that moment, a rush of emotions hit me, like waves crashing one after another. My breath caught. It was as if I was watching my life unravel from a distance. Had this betrayal been there all along, hidden in the gaps of our conversations, in the glances I'd missed? What did I even know about Marissa's past, about her intentions, about a history I'd never thought to question? The pain was sharp and immediate, yet there was something else beneath it, a strange, burning need to understand, to make sense of how we'd reached this point. I didn't confront her, at least not right away. Isn't it strange how the mind works in times like this? Instead, I waited, watching her, studying every small gesture and word as if each could reveal some hidden truth. She smiled at me, but now, that smile felt different, like a practiced mask. I tried to convince myself it was all just a misunderstanding, but deep down I knew. I felt trapped between two worlds. One where everything was solid and true, and another where every second felt like a carefully staged play. The irony of it all was almost unbearable. The rest of that day, my mind spun. I couldn't shake the image of her, that look in her eyes as she must have typed out that message. Details replayed over and over in some painful loop, and I found myself wondering what it meant for us. I still loved her, but now, everything felt fractured, like I was standing in the ruins of what I thought was a happy life. And as I tried to process it all, I couldn't help but wonder what came next, how this betrayal would shape us, and how it would change who I was from here on out. For a while, I kept it all to myself, hiding the hurt and shock behind a mask of normalcy. It was strange feeling this gnawing pain while pretending everything was fine. Each day, I played the role of the loving husband, sharing meals and conversations, all while feeling like a stranger in my own life. But inside, questions circled relentlessly. How long had this been going on? What else had I missed? The weight of it was suffocating, a constant reminder of the secrets lurking just beneath the surface. Still, I wasn't ready to let Marissa know what I'd uncovered. Eventually, my curiosity got the better of me. I started digging, though it felt like stepping into forbidden territory. I searched through old emails, messages, anything that could give me answers. The trail was there, hidden but clear enough. Their exchange wasn't just recent. It stretched back years, each message building on another, revealing a side of Marissa I'd never seen. Each new discovery left me reeling, pushing me further down a path I didn't want to be on. But now, I had proof. Whatever I thought we had, it wasn't as whole as I believed. Finally, I reached my breaking point. One evening, after dinner, I faced her, my hands clenched tight as I laid out the evidence. I expected her to deny it, maybe to laugh it off, but she didn't. Her face fell, and I could see it, the acknowledgement, the acceptance of everything I'd found. She barely tried to explain, barely even hesitated. I could almost feel the gap widening between us, a chasm I couldn't ignore. She admitted it all, the years, the meetings, the feelings she thought she'd buried. There was no hiding anymore. As I listened, her voice sounded far away, like an echo of someone I used to know. Part of me wanted to yell, to demand why I wasn't enough, why she'd held on to something from so long ago. But all I could do was listen. My world had shifted, but her words, strangely, brought a dark kind of satisfaction. The truth was painful, yes, but it felt like a release. And somehow, I knew this was only the beginning of the answers I needed. Marissa didn't hold back. She confessed everything, and it was like watching someone peel back layers I'd never known were there. She told me it had started 10 years ago, a chance encounter that quickly rekindled something she thought she'd buried. Listening to her, I felt a mix of numbness and disbelief. 10 years, an entire decade of stolen moments, hidden messages, and a double life woven into our own. I couldn't wrap my head around how someone could keep a secret that big for so long. She tried to explain that this part of her wasn't about me, but it only left me more lost. The more she spoke, the harder it became to hold on to what I thought I knew. She described it as if it were some powerful force, something she couldn't resist. A connection, she called it, like it explained everything. She said it was emotional, that Roberto reminded her of a time when she was young and free, before responsibilities and routines had set in. I couldn't help but feel like she was talking about someone else's life, not ours. Her words stung, though, because they were raw, and I could see the honesty, the intention in her eyes. It was almost worse knowing she wasn't lying. Then came her plea, a strange twist I didn't expect. She asked for a second chance, for a way to rebuild what she'd broken. She wanted us to try therapy, to work through this mess, and maybe, somehow, start fresh. She claimed that her love for me was still there, even if it wasn't the same love she had for Roberto. Her honesty was so blunt, so bare, that I didn't know whether to feel touched or insulted. Could she really expect me to just forgive and move on? Was she offering a chance at real satisfaction, or just asking me to tolerate what she couldn't let go of? I couldn't answer her then. My mind was spinning, filled with fragments of a life that no longer made sense. I told her I needed time, space to process everything she'd said. She nodded, her face filled with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Maybe regret, maybe relief. All I knew was that the trust between us had shattered, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be pieced back together. As I walked away, I wondered what would come next, and whether I could ever truly find peace with all that I'd learned. I knew I couldn't stay in that house, surrounded by memories that now felt tainted. So, I packed a bag and drove to my brother Carlos's place, hoping that a change of scenery might help me think more clearly. Carlos didn't ask many questions. He's always had this quiet way of understanding without pressing for answers. Sitting alone in his guest room, I felt the weight of it all. The betrayal, the lost years, the confusion over what I wanted for myself now. I knew I needed time, space to figure out what this meant for me, for my identity beyond just being her husband. Carlos was a quiet comfort, offering the kind of support that didn't need words. One evening over coffee, he gently suggested that maybe this was a chance for me to rediscover who I was, to explore parts of myself I'd set aside over the years. His words stuck with me, stirring something inside. I realized that for decades, I'd been us, but now, I had to confront who I was as me. Could this be an opportunity, as strange as it sounded, to build something new? The thought was both intimidating and, oddly enough, a little invigorating. To help clear my mind, I decided to try something different. I'd always been drawn to art, had dabbled here and there, but never had the time or reason to truly explore it. So I bought a few supplies and started painting. At first, it was just colors on a canvas, random shapes with no meaning. But as the days passed, I found myself pouring more into it, letting the emotions flow through each brushstroke. It was strangely satisfying, a quiet kind of therapy that didn't demand explanations or answers. Slowly, I felt myself connecting with parts of me I'd forgotten existed. With each painting, I felt a bit more grounded, a bit more like myself. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave me a sense of purpose, a way to move forward. I started to think about other things I'd set aside over the years. Hobbies, dreams, simple joys. The betrayal still lingered, a shadow over everything. But somehow, I was finding a small sense of peace. In rediscovering these parts of myself, I began to feel like maybe, just maybe, there was a new path waiting for me beyond this heartbreak. After a few weeks away, I knew it was time to face Marissa again. I couldn't avoid her forever, and there were things left unsaid that needed clarity. So, we arranged to meet, and I could feel the tension the moment I saw her. Sitting across from her, the weight of everything that had happened hung between us, heavy and unspoken. I realized that whatever happened next, it couldn't just be about patching up the past. I needed to figure out what I wanted for the future, and this meeting felt like the first step toward that decision. As we talked, I found myself laying it all out. How the trust had shattered, how I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. I explained that I wasn't sure if I could move past the betrayal, no matter how many reassurances or apologies she offered. It was like a wall I couldn't climb over, no matter how much I wanted to. I couldn't deny that part of me longed for satisfaction, a way to make things feel normal again, but I wasn't sure if staying together would ever give me that peace. For the first time, I allowed myself to voice the idea of separation. Marissa listened, her expression shifting from regret to a quiet acceptance. She didn't argue, didn't try to convince me otherwise. I could see the sadness in her eyes, but there was something else too, a kind of understanding, maybe even relief. She acknowledged the impact of her choices, and that more than anything made me feel like I was finally being heard. The pain was still there, but her response made it a little easier to imagine a life without the constant worry, the endless questioning of trust and intention. As we ended the conversation, I knew our decision to part ways was real. It wasn't made in anger or desperation. It was a calm, almost inevitable choice. We'd shared a life, raised a family, and created countless memories, but that chapter was coming to a close. There was sadness, yes, but also a strange hopefulness, a sense that maybe this ending was just a new beginning in disguise. And as I walked away from that meeting, I felt lighter, ready to face whatever came next, even if I wasn't quite sure what that would be. In the days that followed, I started to feel something unexpected, relief. The sadness lingered, of course, but it was different now, lighter somehow. I realized that at 65, my life didn't have to feel like it was winding down. There were new paths to explore, new ways to experience satisfaction, even without the marriage I'd counted on for so long. A sense of possibility started to build, like the first rays of sunlight after a long, dark night. I could actually start fresh, rediscover parts of myself that had been buried beneath years of routine and responsibility. Ideas I hadn't thought about in ages began to bubble up, travel, maybe, or taking art more seriously. I could spend days on a whim, exploring places and hobbies, doing things simply because they felt good, without needing anyone's permission or approval. The more I thought about it, the more invigorated I felt. Each possibility felt like a small promise of freedom, a reminder that life still held room for dreams. Even at my age, it was exhilarating, this sense of autonomy, of having intentions purely for myself. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. As the weeks went by, I threw myself in a painting, letting each stroke of color express feelings I couldn't put into words. And with each completed piece, I found a little more peace, a little more clarity about who I was outside of that relationship. I started meeting new people, visiting galleries, sharing stories, and even laughing in ways I hadn't in years. In rediscovering my creativity, I was rediscovering my confidence, my joy. It felt like a new world had opened up, one filled with a vibrant satisfaction that I hadn't known I'd been missing. This new chapter wasn't one I'd ever expected, but it was one I was ready to embrace. There was still so much to experience, so many parts of myself left to uncover. The pain of the past would always be a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I could see that life had plenty left to offer, that each day was an invitation to grow, to seek joy, to be my own person. And as I looked toward the future, I felt a quiet sense of optimism, knowing that the best of my story was still waiting to be written. Looking back, My journey was filled with heartache, unexpected twists, and a quiet determination to rebuild myself piece by piece. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that life has a way of surprising us, even when we think we've seen it all. My story may have started with betrayal, but it became something so much bigger, a journey of rediscovery, of finding peace and satisfaction within myself. And if my experience can offer even a spark of encouragement to someone else, then perhaps it was all worth it. Because it's never too late to start over, to heal, and to find a new path. I want anyone going through a tough time to know this. No matter the pain, there's always a way forward, even if it doesn't look like the life you imagined. Sometimes, the hardest situations bring the greatest growth. They push us to reevaluate, to find the strength we didn't know we had, to rebuild with intention and purpose. Whether it's through finding a new passion, connecting with new people, or just taking a step back to breathe, there's a power in allowing yourself the chance to start again. To those listening, let my story be a reminder that the end of one chapter doesn't mean the end of the book. In fact, it can be the start of something even more fulfilling. There's no age limit on transformation, on happiness, or on pursuing the life you deserve. If my journey through heartache to healing resonates with you, consider sharing it. There may be someone else who needs to hear these words, who's feeling lost or defeated and could use a little hope to guide them forward. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes it doesn't go the way we planned. But through each twist and turn, there's an opportunity to grow, to rebuild, and to find new meaning. So, here's my message to you. Hold on to hope, embrace change, and trust that you have the strength to create the life you want, no matter where you're starting from. We're all capable of new beginnings, and who knows what joys may be waiting just around the corner.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.